Are you looking for the solution to the biggest safety problem in the trucking industry? Roadcheck and DOT confirm that 60% of all brake defects found were out-of-adjustment brakes, and a large percentage of these are equipped with automatic slack adjusters. Safety Check Systems will show you how uncomplicated the solution is. Are you concerned about the overall safety of your truck or trailer's braking efficiency? Are your maintenance costs on the rise? Would you like an accurate and easy way for drivers and mechanics to inspect brake adjustment every day? Then you need Safety Check System 2, the proven easy-to-use solution to air brake adjustment inspection problems. Safety Check is a bolt-on air brake adjustment gauge. Nothing is easier to read or easier to install. When a driver or mechanic sees the yellow indicator sitting between the two gauge pins, he knows the brakes are within the readjustment limit. When the indicator touches or moves past the outside gauge pin, the brakes need work. It's that simple and that quick. No need for tools. No need for lengthy inspections. You don't even have to slide under the truck or trailer. In an independent study, researchers found that it takes a good mechanic 25 minutes to measure brake stroke on a 5-axle rig. Because of the time involved, this rarely happens. Instead, they take a shortcut. They adjust the slack on each brake. This takes about 15 minutes in total. Also, this method will not show the mechanic if the auto slack is in fact adjusting correctly. Nor will it show any other problems, such as a cracked brake drum or faulty brake chamber. Auto slacks should not be routinely manually adjusted. If they are not maintaining correct pushrod stroke, then the auto slack is faulty and must be repaired or replaced. With Safety Check, anyone can inspect all 10 brakes on a rig this size in less than 2 minutes. Watch. While our mechanic is checking the brakes, let's see what makes Safety Check the best brake adjustment indicator on the market. Safety Check System 2 is a patented brake adjustment inspection system. Safety Check makes gauges for steering, drive, and trailer axles. They bolt on the existing brake chamber mounting studs. This patented gauge plate system is adjustable to accommodate chamber sizes ranging from Type 9 through Type 30 long stroke. And only Safety Check gauges are made from superior high-strength pressed alloy steel for reliability and durability. How's our mechanic doing? 6 down, 4 to go. We'll check back in a minute. Back to how Safety Check System 2 works. For power units, the clevis pin connecting the pushrod clevis to the slack adjuster is used to hold the gauge indicator. We supply a new clevis pin that's cold forged from alloy steel and hardened for long life and wear resistance. It features a 150,000-pound tensile strength that's almost twice as strong as the original equipment clevis pin. And it comes in 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch diameters. Safety Check has also developed a patented greasable clevis pin that helps eliminate binding or seizing in the yoke and pin bushing. Also, the new standard greasable clevis pin is available separately for power units and trailers and fits automatic and manual slack yokes. All the System 2 gauge components are treated with a new anti-corrosion material for extended life. And they feature these high visibility indicators that pinpoint your brake adjustment within 1/32 of an inch. They're dirt resistant to make inspection easier and have been tested accurate in temperatures ranging from -40 degrees to 120 degrees. In fact, Safety Check manufactures a wide range of air brake adjustment gauges to fit all makes of power units, trucks, and trailers. Just 5 part numbers cover 90% of all equipment on the road today, and each system comes fully assembled and ready to install. Now, back to our mechanic. All done, and in less than 2 minutes. That's how easy it is to make sure your brakes are in adjustment. And look, one brake is overstroking. With Safety Check, it's easy to spot potential trouble before you start rolling. Using the Type 30 air brake chamber example, braking force is maximized with push rod stroke operating between 1.5 and 1 3/4 inches. Beyond 1 3/4 inches, braking force begins to decrease, and beyond 2 inches, falls off dramatically. So remember, with Safety Check gauges installed, you can also monitor brake stroke balance on each axle. Safety Check is also easy to install. Installation time takes less than 6 minutes for each brake. Plus, Safety Check requires no modifications and never wears out. And each Safety Check system is warranted for 5 years against defects in materials or workmanship. Today, a growing number of truck and trailer manufacturers, distributors, transport companies, and private fleets have made Safety Check standard equipment.
We looked at other brake adjustment inspection products on the market, but they all had some weakness in their systems that made them unacceptable. We believe Safety Check is the first real practical and cost-effective solution to our problem. At Glass Van Great Dane, we've adopted Safety Check as standard equipment on all our trailers in the interest of promoting safety and good maintenance.
We want our customers to feel safe in our trucks. Safety Check is a great way for us to meet this customer need. Our mechanics can quickly and easily inspect each truck. Plus, we can show customers how to do their own brake adjustment inspections when they're taking a truck for a long-term rental or over long distances.
Maintenance is my responsibility, and I'm glad we have installed Safety Check air brake adjustment gauges on all our trucks and trailers. It's easy for drivers to inspect their brakes as they can see the adjustment without having to crawl underneath their units. This helps avoid unnecessary brake adjustments and results in significant cost savings for us.
Unnecessary brake adjustments can cost you time and money in the shop and on the road. Don't let that happen to you. Get the easiest, most effective air brake adjustment gauge on the market today. Insist on Safety Check System 2. Nothing's easier to read. Nothing's easier to install. And nothing takes the worry out of brake adjustment like Safety Check. Your Safety Check air brake adjustment gauge comes fully assembled and ready to install. Each power unit axle kit should contain 2 gauge brackets with preset adjustable gauge plate and high visibility gauge pins already installed, 2 clevis pins with high visibility indicators and new cotter pins, plus 1 set of detailed instructions and a checking procedure vehicle decal. Each trailer axle kit should contain 2 gauge brackets with preset adjustable gauge plate and high visibility gauge pins already installed, 1 left-hand and 1 right-hand indicator bracket with high visibility indicators, and if ordered as a greasable kit, 2 standard greasable clevis pins, plus 1 set of detailed instructions and a checking procedure vehicle decal. On steering axle systems, the gauge plate is preset for chambers type 16, 20, and 24, so the readjustment limit is preset at 1 3/4 inches. To set the gauge plate for chamber types 9 and 12, remove the outer gauge pin and place it in the inside hole. This sets the readjustment limit to 1 3/8 inches. On drive and trailer axles, the gauge plate is preset for chamber type 30, so the readjustment limit is preset at 2 inches. To set the gauge plate for long stroke, square port type 30 chambers, remove the inner gauge pin and place it in the outer hole. This sets the readjustment limit to 2.5 inches. For other chamber sizes on either the steering, drive, or trailer axles, please specify the exact size when ordering. Before you begin the installation, please follow these next safety procedures. Chock the wheels to ensure the truck or trailer will not move. Set the air pressure at 100 psi. And release the brakes. The brakes will now be in the ready-to-roll position. On all power units, the clevis pin connecting the pushrod clevis to the slack adjuster is used to hold the gauge indicator. Therefore, the existing clevis pin must be removed and replaced with the one supplied in your kit. Check if the clevis pin in your truck or tractor assembly is 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch in diameter. After removing the existing pin, replace it with the new supplied clevis pin. This pin is longer and fitted with a yellow indicator. It must be installed facing towards the gauge in order to function properly. We recommend a dab of silicone adhesive be used on the inside of the yellow clevis pin indicator to secure it in place. To begin installing the steer axle gauge, remove the lower nut and lock washer from the brake chamber. The next step is to fit the gauge bracket on the stud. Make sure the gauge pins are pointing upwards towards the previously installed clevis pin. Then replace the lock washer and nut on the brake chamber to hold the gauge in place. Retorque the nut to the manufacturer's specification. With the brakes in the ready-to-roll position, set the sliding gauge bracket so that the inside of the rear pin is touching the clevis pin indicator. Then tighten the gauge plate nuts to 10 foot-pounds. This position confirms that the pushrod is returning to the off position. When checking brake adjustment, always set air pressure at 100 psi as per out-of-service criteria section 1A5 North America. To check the brake adjustment, apply the service brake. Then check the clevis pin indicator. If it's within the gauge pins, the brakes are adjusted properly. If it's touching or beyond the gauge pins, the brakes are out of adjustment. To begin installing the drive axle gauge, remove the lower nut and lock washer from the brake chamber. The next step is to fit the gauge bracket on the stud. Make sure the gauge pins are pointing upwards towards the previously installed clevis pin. Then, replace the lock washer and nut on the brake chamber to hold the gauge in place. Retorque the nut to the manufacturer's specification. With the brakes in the ready-to-roll position, set the sliding gauge bracket so that the inside of the front pin is touching the clevis pin indicator. Then tighten the gauge plate nuts to 10 foot-pounds. This position confirms that the pushrod is returning fully to the off position. To check the brake adjustment, apply the service brake. Then check the clevis pin indicator. If it's within the gauge pins, the brakes are adjusted properly. If it's touching or beyond the gauge pins, the brakes are out of adjustment. To begin installing the trailer axle gauge, remove the inside nut and lock washer from the brake chamber. The next step is to fit the gauge bracket on the stud. Make sure the gauge pins are pointing downwards. Then replace the lock washer and nut on the brake chamber to hold the gauge in place. Retorque the nut to the manufacturer's specification. To install the indicator brackets, back off the clevis jam nut and install the fork indicator bracket. RH on right-hand side, LH on left-hand side. Retighten jam nut to manufacturer's specifications. Install the indicator on the bracket head. With the brakes in the ready-to-roll position, set the sliding gauge bracket so that the inside of the front pin is touching the indicator. Then tighten the gauge plate nuts to 10 foot-pounds. This position confirms that the pushrod is returning fully to the off position. To check the brake adjustment, apply the service brake. Then check the indicator. If it's within the gauge pins, the brakes are adjusted properly. If it's touching or beyond the gauge pins, the brakes are out of adjustment. For trailers with Hendrickson in-track suspension, the trailer gauge is installed with the gauge pins pointing upwards. Install the in-track's indicator clamp on the pushrod with the clamp bolt pointing towards the gauge pins. These instructions are meant as a guideline only. For more specific information, please refer to the printed instructions supplied with your Safety Check System 2 air brake adjustment gauge kit.